Welcome to Breakaway. I am Liz Ferguson, your host. I am delighted that you have joined me today as we continue to talk a little bit more about Breakaway. So, if you tuned in the last episode, we were talking a little bit about how do we deal when the people closest to us are hesitant to see our change, or they're not recognizing that we're changing. And we also talked a little bit about the life of Paul because we know that Paul had a history. And before being the Paul that a lot of us know as the man who wrote so much of the New Testament and boldly proclaimed the gospel, he was Saul and lived a completely different life, to where we see how even at the beginning of his transformation, people were hesitant, like, do we really accept that he's had a transformation? Like, is that even really possible? So for me, it was interesting to look at that about his experience, and then to be able to see the great calling forth that he continues on as he writes so much of the New Testament, where he is constantly telling us about our new nature and adopting our new nature and clothing ourselves with it and taking it on, and how we bear responsibility in participating in that transformation. And so as I continue to think about that, in the last week, I've been really grappling with how do I move on in this endeavor of breakaway, in dealing with my past hurts and the trauma that I've experienced in my life that have really molded a lot of the way that I process things, and a lot of the way of how I tend to react to things. And as I've been praying and reading scripture and just really being introspective about that, I came to the point where I was honest with myself, and I said to myself, you have to come to the place where you are accepting healing for these past experiences. It's not enough to be a willing participant in moving forward with transformation and implementing all these different behavior modifications and implementing all these different ways that you can reframe your mind and the way that you think. But I was honest with myself, and I thought about, I need to come to the place where I am going to accept healing. I think that a lot of times we want to move forward with breaking away from patterns. We want to move forward with transformation in our lives. And we want to do that with dealing with the now only, and focusing on, well, what can I do now to change things moving forward? But sometimes it takes healing what's happened in the past. And that's not always fun, because it means at times having to recall instances that we would rather forget, whether they were things of our choosing that may have happened or things that were done to us. We may not necessarily want to really live those moments again or remember them. But we can experience healing without necessarily having to relive the moment. And I understand that there are different methodologies for dealing with these things. And I'm not here to get into the methodology because that is not my area of expertise, and I don't pretend for it to be my area of expertise. But what I do know, just sharing from personal experience, is that yes, there have been moments where talking about those experiences have helped me be able to identify certain things that occurred and accept where things were not necessarily my fault, especially when we're discussing situations that were not necessarily my decision. But there also is a recognition that there are some instances where I don't have to relive the moment in order to choose to let go of the hurt that I might be holding onto. And that's going to look different for all of us because we all have, of course, different experiences, and the way that we look at things is going to be different. But I can accept for myself that there are some hurts and some pains in my life that I am hanging on to because I know that I can use that experience as a sort of armor in other situations. And so when I'm looking at using that hurt and that pain in a way of keeping a distance between myself and other relationships, using it as an armor or as a way that keeps me on guard so I can constantly be on the lookout to see when someone is doing something similar. Well, that's creating a divide for myself and the relationships that I'm trying to move forward in. I can't ever move forward when I'm constantly looking back. So I have to get to the place where I'm willing to let it go. And it reminds me of the story of Lot's wife in Genesis, where we see that Lot and his family have been visited by angels who have come to warn them that their city where they are living is going to be destroyed by God. And as they're fleeing from the city, leaving everything that they know behind, we know that they've been told not to look back. And if you know the story, you know that Lot's wife looks back. And it's in that action of looking back that she turns into a pillar of salt. And why does that happen? It doesn't happen because God is mean. It happens because we cannot move forward while still hanging on and looking behind us to the past. If anything, what that does is it causes a hindrance for those that are trying to move forward with me. It causes a hindrance for me. It causes me to not put my focus or my attention where it should be. And I'm left wondering, well, what happened? How did this all of a sudden not turn out the way that I was hoping to when I'm living the present moment, holding it to past experiences, judging it by past experiences, but somehow hoping that I'm going to be able to move forward differently. And I have to be willing to stop looking back. That doesn't mean that I approach every situation with complete naivety, being naive. That's not what it means. But it definitely does create space for me to be able to move forward with a clean slate, not holding somebody who isn't part of the past I keep looking back at, or the hurt and pain I keep judging everything by. They weren't part of that. And if I let it go, I'm able to give them the proper opportunity that they should have. And so I realize that if I'm really looking to move forward and to heal and to change, I have to let it go. And I have to trust that God protects me. And I have to trust that I am not the one who always has to fight my battles, but that I can trust that God has my back, that I can trust that God is going to stand up for me in those instances when I am facing hurt and pain as a result of somebody else's actions. I have to learn to trust God. In fact, in the lesson that we were recently doing this week in the names of God for zealously achieving purpose, we were talking about Jehovah Nisi, which means God our banner. And it's that teaching on trusting that God has us covered. He is our banner, and a banner was held up in battle because it signified the allegiance, the commitment, and the victory, right? So when God is my banner, the Lord is my banner, I can move forward in confidence, knowing that God covers me. God has me. I do not have to always be so focused on defending myself from everyone, but I can give myself the opportunity to love others how God is calling me to love them, which is to see them through His lens, to see them how He sees them, to love them, to be understanding, to be empathetic. And in those instances where there is purposeful injury done towards me, trusting that God has my back. I do not have to always feel like I need to be on the defensive. I can choose to let my hurt and my pain go. I can choose to leave that in the past. I can choose to leave that behind me, because the reality is that if I want to move forward into a future, I have to let go of the past. If I want to break away from my patterns and I want transformation, I have to let go of the things that have made me who I'm trying to change. I got to let them go. That's what's going to help the promise. I can't forfeit the promise of change and transformation in my life because I'm comfortable with the pain and hurt that I've been clinging to. It's like I hang on to the shattered pieces. I hang on to these ashes and I hang on to it all so tightly and so close to me that I don't realize that the shards are cutting me and the ashes are suffocating me because I'm so accustomed to that pain. But what if I let it go and I no longer had to deal with the shards cutting into me or the ashes suffocating me? But I could actually breathe fresh air for once. I could actually not have to experience the pain and hurt that I've been hanging on to. Well, God promises us that. And that's why He tells us that He's going to give us a crown of beauty in place of our ashes. We just have to release them to Him. We just have to let it go. And so I just want us to really understand that if we want to experience true transformation and we want to break away from whatever patterns we've been employing that we've already recognized do not work, we got to be willing to let go. We have to be willing to surrender our past and to release it and to stop using it as an armor and to trust that God is for us and that He's with us and that He helps us and that He protects us. And if I can wrap my brain around that and allow God to be God, then I don't necessarily have to focus so much of me on defending myself, especially defending myself from people who are just trying to love me. May not be perfect people. They may accidentally hurt me because, like me, they're not perfect and they're going through their own transformations and changes and breakaways. But I don't have to judge them by those who have intentionally hurt me in the past and then make my prophesied future based on my hurtful past happen because I refuse to let my hurtful past go. So, my challenge for us is let it go. Let's let go of the past. Let's walk in a new thing. Let's walk forward in understanding that we don't have to hang on to it and we can release it and we can allow God to heal us. Because if we allow Him to heal our hearts the way He wants to, we're going to be able to be even more successful in our endeavor to break away. So that's my challenge for you. And I hope and pray that you rise up to the occasion and that you are able to really move forward in choosing to heal. Thank you and have a great evening. God bless.